Hi everyone, I'm Mikaela
And I'm Nicole.
and we are Too Truthful. So we came out of this podcast because we felt that, that we have a lot of sellers or not buyers looking into new launches, but there's always a lot of information out there, but sometimes they may not be the most honest. So we thought we'd come in with this new podcast, give our 2 cents or our honest view as to whether the project is something that you should consider or not. Okay, so for today's episode, we're gonna talk about Coastal Cabana. It is currently ongoing with they're ongoing with their previews right now. So we might be a little bit too late, but no, I think it's only happening in January.
Yeah.
So I think by the time this episode is out, it'll still be some time before you actually decide whether you want to go into Coastal Cabana or not. Yeah. So let's quickly talk about what Coastal Cabana is. Coastal Cabana is in EC that's in Pasir Ris. So Pasir Ris is I know maybe you're not the most familiar with Pasir Ris because I'm not Eastie. You're not Eastie. You're like a Northeastie. Northeastie. Yeah. But Pasir Ris is a different part of the east. Okay, let's talk about the developer. The developer is Ting Tian Realty, which we have heard of, and they have done many of our very reputable developments like Tenet, one of the super popular ECs that's happening that has already launched, and I think about the TOP this year in Tampines. We have Bloomsbury, we have Altura, Jadescape, super popular project as well. So they have a very reputable track record in Singapore. Okay, let's just take a look at the project facts really quickly. So it is quite a large development. We have a total of 748 units with 748 residential car park lots. One thing I realized in new launches now, right, is you don't get 1-to-1 ratio of your car park. Yeah, which is so frustrating. So anyway, this one you have that, which is great. It's, of course, full condo facilities. And one of the selling points in this project is the greenery, being close to nature. I think that is one of their sales pitch for this project. So basically, our objective today, we want to cover whether or not Coastal Cabana can buy or not. We will talk about the Tampines versus Pasir Ris scene because there are a few ECs that are launching not a few. One has been launched and an upcoming one's launching, and what you should buy in Coastal Cabana. Basically, these are the three things that we want to cover today. And so let's talk about Coastal Cabana, can buy or not. Yeah, okay. ECs. Yeah, so this year's hottest topic was HPR, 100 Palms Residence.
Yes. Right.
And you and I, actually, we both transacted a unit, by the way. One floor above each other.
Yeah, correct.
And in the span of 6 months, I think, the gap, you transacted 100K more than me.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know if you know that.
Did I?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
And these owners all made quite a hefty sum.
Yeah.
Now, do you think this is the same thing that's going to happen in these upcoming new launches?
I think this is actually a very natural question that everyone has been talking about. Because when I was looking to buy my new home, I actually did try ballot for 100 Palm Residences as well. And if I gotten it, I would have been $1 million seller. Fortunately, didn't. So I think a lot of people are thinking, okay, now that we've got a lot of these cases, 100 Palm Residence being the most recent one, getting $1 million profits, you would think that, okay, ECs is something that guaranteed that you will get that kind of $1 million profits. But I think there might be a note of caution in that. Because for 100 Palm Residences, what it got going for it is, number one, it had the MRT that was upcoming. So before that, I didn't. And then they announced it, when they were buying the unit, they already knew that there was a upcoming MRT over there. But I think only when it MOP'd, then I think it was only about 2, or at least the MRT is starting to build. So they kind of see that, okay, it's going to come in about 2 to 3 years' time.
There was an MRT effect.
Yeah, correct. So there is the MRT effect. Then the second thing is when 100 Palm Residences was launched, and that was in 2017. In general, the 2017 average transacted PSF for OCR was around 1,001 to 1,002. So, but for 100 Palm Residences, they actually transacted at 700 PSF. So that's a huge disparity. Yeah, for especially a new build. So I think that helped to kind of be able to get that disparity, and that translated to when they sold at that time. And they sold around last year to this year when they started to MOP. I think that's when the market was also hot. There is a lack of new builds in that area. 3-4 bedder in that area. Most of the developments there are older. And I think they are able to kind of price in that premium because they already came in around 700 PSF. So even if they transacted, close to 2,000 PSF, it was still something that was palatable for the market. So that helped them really get that $1 million kind of profits. There was also that whole COVID effect that helped to push it up. I don't know. Okay, sometimes I ask myself, if not for COVID, would we have still seen the same kind of gains? Maybe not. So COVID definitely, I think they were in a position where it was just really good timing as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think, three main factors as to why 100-pound residences did so well. I don't know whether we'll see that kind of replicated success for Coastal Cabana because number one, Coastal Cabana isn't located next to an MRT.
No.
It is quite a distance away, and there are quite a few projects that are upcoming in the area as well that could serve as competition, right?
Not in the immediate area. We're talking about their big brother, big sister
Yes.
sort of situation. Shall we go straight into that now?
Yes.
Okay, so let's take a look at where Pasir Ris is on the maps. Let's open it up very quickly. This is the home map of Pasir Ris. Actually, Pasir Ris isn't a very big area. It's quite a nice centralized area. You can see it
Long.
a very long area just in their own little space. Very comfortable. I will say I would generally cluster, usually I like to do this format in my frameworks where I segregate them into individual clusters. It helps me to understand the market for that area better. So we have the area where we have Stratham and View 8. This is what I'll call cluster A. What's very popular here is because there's the Overseas Family International School. So a lot of the tenants here actually are students of this area. The next one that's really popular is the one where it's closest to the MRT. So the MRT is right in the middle of the Pasir Ris area. That's where you have Cocoa Palms. When people say Cocoa Palms, then they know the immediate area. So Cocoa Palms, NV Residences, The Palette, D-Nest. And the new one, of course, is the integrated development, which broke the news lah. Not broke the news, but they were the ones that hit 2,000 PSF during their launch, which was what people didn't expect. So there was hype for Pasir Ris indeed. Then we go to where Coastal Cabana is, which is where the Wild Wild Wet area is. This is more surrounded by nature. So you have that whole Pasir Ris Park, you have activities in downtown east, then you have more forested area. So this place here, I will say in this whole cluster, this is cluster C.
Yeah.
Okay. We have some other ECs here as well, like Sea Horizon and Watercolors. These are some of the popular projects in this area. And of course, we have some boutique developments as well, but we are not taking that into consideration because the performance is a little bit different.
So I think when we look at the area that Coastal Cabana is going to be, which is your Sea Watercolor, Sea Strand, we looked at the performance of these projects. We look at in terms of the transacting PSF for these projects. When you want to enter Coastal Cabana, one of the main questions you'll be having is, if I buy this and I exit after MOP, how is my performance going to be like versus all the other projects in the area? I think in general, when we do the lease reset method, which is something that we commonly do just to kind of see what's the PSF versus something that is a lot older. So most of the projects in that area, I think they tend to be a little bit older.
Yes.
Like 2014.
Yes, 2011 even.
Yeah.
So if I go by cluster, let's take a look at cluster A first. We can see that these are left with 86 years. They're about 2016, 2017. Actually, they're not very old lah. If we go to cluster B, then they are also in the range of the 2011, 2015, 2017 range. Prices all there. We can take a look.
2008, 2010.
2010, we have a 2011, 2017.
Yeah.
So these are, the prices are there as well. And then we have cluster C, where we can see also around the same, 2014, 2016. So slightly newer. But this is where we see more of the ECs lah.
Yeah.
Because Sea Horizon is there.
Correct. So one thing that I think a lot of people don't know is the date that the project is built versus the lease date. Lease start date can be quite different.
Yeah.
So we see for cluster C, I think everything is usually the lease start date is maybe 2012. They build it, and then 2015 is about 3 years, give or take around there. But if you look for cluster B, that's when you see the differences over here.
Yeah.
So this one is interesting because a lot of the land leases, they started in 2008. But what happened was they actually built the project
much later.
So they built it in a kind of subsequential manner. So you see, for example, Olivia, 2008 lease start date, 2011 was its TOP. And then for NV Residences, same date, lease start date 2008. They were only built in 2013. And then for Palette, so on. And then for D-Nest and Cocoa Palms, same thing. Their lease start date is very, very different from when they were built. So so when we look at that, it becomes a little bit difficult for you to really analyze in terms of the PSF kind. Because PSF, yes, for now it could be around 1,006, 1,008 sort of range. 1,005, 1,006 kind of range. But then when you actually think about, setting back the lease, then it becomes a lot different in terms of the numbers. So we do that to analyze whether, coming into Coastal Cabana, which is indicated about 1,006 PSF, whether that's something that we can enter into. And I think generally what we're seeing is that I think PSF prices is definitely your resale project will be lower than for sure. Even with the lease resale will be lower than your new launch. But I think quantum wise, we actually seeing quite similar in terms of like entry price, right?
I mean, one of the reasons why is, of course, with newer launches, the sizes tend to be a little bit smaller. However, even though it's smaller, I will say I've really enjoyed new launches and the floor plans. Firstly, they are all mostly in the harmonized. If they are not
newer
ones, they all have the harmonized floor plan. So, aircon ledges are no longer part of the consideration. Bedrooms are really good size. Everything becomes really efficient.
Yes.
So even for, let's say, a 3-bedroom at 872 square feet, it can feel as good as a 900 plus square feet in an older resale development. So I think that's one of the things that I find very interesting about new launches and why I'm starting to feel very inclined to new launches in the recent years, because harmonized floor plans and also the way developers are pricing it has started to become so competitive. Yes. Okay, but back to Coastal Cabana. Cluster B is definitely the premium in the area because they are closest to the MRT. Of course, Coastal Cabana tends to be a little bit further away. So we are seeing PSF moving about 1.3 to 1.5. So definitely quite a disparity against the other side. But in terms of quantum, when we look at it, it is actually really similar. So we're looking at a 1.43 starting price for a 872 square feet. But if we take a look at what we can get in the market today for resale, it is also about 1.39, 1.4. So then people will say, oh, then isn't it? I mean, if you look at it like that, it kind of is like a no-brainer, right? To buy into a new launch.
I guess it really depends on what you're looking for, right? If let's say you are a buyer you need something urgently, you can't wait for 3 years for it to be built, and you don't want to also kind of limit yourself to that 5 years MOP, then I think you can consider the resale projects in this area, because in terms of PSF, they are quite attractive. And for a 3-bedder around a 1.5, it's really quite attractive. But of course you need to take note again that it's an older project in terms of the remaining lease. That's something to consider as well. But if let's say, for example, you are in that life stage, maybe you're students, uni students,
so haven't even gotten
that, or maybe you just started your job, but you know that this is the person that you wanna settle down here with, right? I mean, this is the Singapore style, right? We buy a house and then we get married after that. So maybe you're in that life stage. You want to consider something. 1.5 could be something that is palatable for you for a 3-bedder, because there is progressive payment, there's deferred payment, there are subsidies. So I think that is something that you can consider if you're not immediately looking for something, but you want to get your hand into this. You just want to get started first.
So 10 Pasir Ris area. Let's talk a little bit more about Pasir Ris area as well, and what's happening in the area. So this whole area, like we mentioned, this is where Coastal Cabana will be. Actually, if you look at the area, right, there isn't many more new plots for new development. There are some new under construction BTOs that are happening here. Quite large, quite close to the MRT. Technically, it's just one bus stop away to Coastal Cabana. So I do think this might be a natural progression for them in future to upgrade to the area if they still want to be in the space, because there are some primary schools there. Otherwise, there are also some plots here, the forested area, which in the master plan has already shown to be zoned for residential. So there are still, I will say they can carve out maybe minimally 4 plots. You think 6? 6 might be a bit stretched.
I think 4.
Maybe about 4 plots there. So there are still some upcoming developments in the area. Aside from that, there are new MRT stations coming up as well. This is your Pasir Ris East MRT station. Let's find it. Is it here? Yes, that's really tiny. But yeah, it's basically where the Asparius is. That's another cluster. It's one on its own, so I wouldn't call it a cluster. This is where Pasir Ris East is, and that's where you can connect yourselves to the other cross island line as well. So that will connect you to like what Punggol and areas like that. So that's something people are looking forward to. So actually, technically, right, when you talked about new MRT, there are schools in the area. Compared to HPR, there are similar traits. However, I think the difference in consideration is also what's going to be the supply in future when you want to sell, right?
Yes.
Because that's one of the things you mentioned.
Correct.
The developments there are very old in
Yes.
HCR. Actually, here also lah. So when we look at a TOP period of 20, well, no,
I mean, there are some of them that maybe about
6,
7 years old.
yes.
Yes, correct. So I think the difference between HPR and over here is HPR is in the area where there are a lot of landed clusters, not as many private condominiums.
No, not
I mean, they're all spread out here and there. They don't have clusters like we see in Pasir Ris,
yeah.
where this is a cluster of like 5, 6 kind of condos. So I think that's where the difference is. The pent-up demand there is slightly higher. But when we look at Pasir Ris, we think about pent-up demand. And I think most of the projects there are maybe earlier than 2020, right? So if you're looking for something newer, then you'll be looking maybe further towards the Tampines area, which is the area that we want to talk about as well.
Yes. So one of the projects that happened was really hot this year at the start of the year was Orel at Tampines. So let's bring ourselves to the map here. Orel at Tampines is just beside Tenet. A lot of people wanted to get Tenet, but it was fully sold.
Yes.
Orel was really hyped up. It was almost fully sold on launch day. One of the reasons why I believe it's so popular is it also has a huge pool of upgrading HDBs. These are all close to $1 million 5-room flats as well. You also have the upcoming MRT station and bus interchange right beside it, and you have amenities just almost at your doorstep as well. So it has a lot going for them. If we take a look at the prices of what was transacting back then, let's just take a look at the 3 bidders. This is the smaller one. They were going at about the PSF of 1,007, 1,008. Actually, that's pricier than Coastal Cabana.
I think the latest transaction is about 1,007, 1,008, but the initial transactions were, if I'm not wrong, around 1,006 plus 1,007. They started around
1,006, but high
1,006-ish, yeah. Which is what we kind of expect for Coastal Cabana as well. Indicative is 1,006, but of course I think for your higher floor units or your prime
sea view facing.
Yes, because I think one of the main attraction for Coastal Cabana is number one is located where you can actually see the sea view. So because in front of it is all low rise, right? So if you're getting the blocks that are facing the sea view, getting a higher floor unit, you're definitely going to pay more than 1,006 PSF.
For sure.
Yeah,
I mean, there are only how many of them also facing that side? Like literally 2 blocks facing towards that side.
Yeah,
they're gonna get a definite premium. So there are many different variations of the 3 bidders. We have them ranging from 840 square feet all the way to the 947 square feet, and then we can move on to the 4 bidders, which are about 1023. So I will say quantum wise, if we just take a look, just like that, I will say it's quite similar. People then will also ask me, what's the point of looking at a project that's already fully sold? Why are we still looking at that? But I think there are considerations. Let's share more.
Yeah, so I think one main concern that we'll have for Coastal Cabana is in terms of the launch date, how close it was to Orel. Orel was earlier this year.
This was, I think, Feb or Jan this year.
Yeah, so it was fully sold. So obviously there's going to be a lot of attention for Coastal Cabana as well, because in terms of its build date, MOP date, it's going to be fairly around the same timing. So if let's say, for example, you're a buyer going into Coastal Cabana, you're looking for a 3-bedder. Number one, one of the main things that you need to think about is that after MOPs, maybe you're deciding to sell and upgrade, right? Which what most people do for ECs. You'll be thinking, okay, how can I exit? Because there will be Orel at Tampines as well. They're releasing their 3-bedders. And Orel at Tampines, one thing about their unit mix is that they are very focused on 3-bedders. So they have a lot of 3-bedders hitting the market at the same time as you are likely going to be exiting as well. So you'll be thinking, okay, how do I
differentiate myself?
Correct, because one is extremely close to the MRT, Orel is just right next to the upcoming MRT, whereas for Coastal Cabana you are a little bit further. Right, and I think like you mentioned earlier, that Tampines area is going to see a lot of development. You have parktown residences, you've got lots of HDB,
upgrades,
And so that's going to be a differentiating. There's going to be kind of a premium factor for Orel or Tampines. So you'll be thinking, okay, how do I then
Stand out.
yeah, how do I stand out? How do I remain competitive? So then that boils down to, again, price and stack analysis, because you need to go into a unit that has that premium factor for you to be able to price yourself competitively or at a premium to Orel or Tampines.
I wouldn't say floor plan alone is enough to stand out, because now all the new launches, their floor
They're
plans
all about the same.
yeah, pretty good already. So maybe it then boils down to what type of unit to buy, right? So like you said, the Orel has a lot of 3-bedders, not enough 4-bedders. Maybe that's what people should be buying in Coastal Cabana.
Exactly.
Right?
So for Orel, Tampines, and Tenet, how they differentiate themselves is that Tenet tends to lean towards bigger units.
Okay.
Orel, Tampines, I think in terms of how they marketed themselves to be a value buy. So their units were smaller. And then with PSF, they managed to keep their quantum low. So I think for Coastal Cabana, they're probably doing the same thing. But let's say, for example, you are in between 3-4-bedder, maybe a 3-bedder plus study or 4-bedder. Our recommendation would be to go for the bigger units, because then you are able to kind of get yourself out of that competition in that 3-bedders when they all flood the market.
Yeah, that sounds like that sounds correct by theory. You don't want to buy something that has there's so much supply, right? There is going to be even more supply in the area.
Yeah.
Not an immediate competition, but very similar. And it's actually something that I'm looking forward to find out about as well. And that is Revel. Revel is also in the Tampines region, but in the Tampines west side. So that's closer to where your Temasek Poly is. Let's take a look at where it is on the map. We see Pinery right here where it says UC TOP 2028. Then we have the Tampines West EC, which is over here, and this is where the projected Revel is going to be. So seeing the hype from how Parktown and Orel is, I believe that Orel firstly performed very well because the price disparity from what the 3-bedders in Parktown were asking was so big a gap compared to Orel. It was just a natural progression if you're eligible to just go and buy a subsidized 3-bedder rather than going for a full one, like 2.18 mil. So I think the same thing is going to happen with Pinery and Tampines West. The Revel is going to have that good advantage and edge over it, because in the first place, this area is not it doesn't have that. Actually, if you think about it, we're the only EC here. There is one Treasure at Tampines, but technically it's a bit far because you have to drive quite a bit there.
Yeah.
This one is right next to the MRT station. The next cluster will then be towards this side, Tampines Avenue. I don't even know what this is called, Tampines Avenue. But yes, we'll talk more about this when we talk about Pinery. But basically, I guess where I'm leading to is, then what should people go for? Should they be waiting for Revel, or should they be going for Coastal Cabana? One is next to the MRT. One is going to be next to okay, technically they're both next to a mall. Okay, right. It's just that one has the advantage of being like the only one kind of there in that area, and the other one,
newest kid cluster of all their condos.
So if you were in that situation today, you have the option to either get Coastal Cabana or Revel. Which would you go for?
I think Revel is likely going to be looking at February. Yes, based on current indications, but of course they could shift. But if we're looking around February, then January is probably where Coastal Cabana's booking date is. It's going to be very, very close.
Super close. That's why you have the option, ma.
Yeah,
you can choose either or.
So I think for Revel, I think it's extremely exciting because, like you mentioned, it is located right next to Pinery, which is going to be integrated development. Again, we're going to see the same kind of performance that we saw for Parktown and Orel. But the thing is, you also need to then consider that Revel is likely going to be a premium price, a little bit higher. Because in terms of its land cost, I think it is about the same, about the 1100 region, just slightly more. But because developers, developers are smart, right? They usually price and market based on past experience, or they look at what has happened and then they continue to do the same thing. So they're gonna look at Parktown and Orel and they're gonna try to replicate the same performance. So I think for Revel, likely our starting prices are going to be higher.
I think so too.
For Coastal Cabana, it's around 1,006 indicative, starting around mid-1,006 higher. But I think for Revel, it's going to likely look at around 1,007.
Probably. And that's just the starting prices.
Correct, yeah. And we also don't know in terms of the unit mix, what kind of units you get there. And also, I think when it comes to new launches, sometimes it's not even about whether to buy.
Whether or not you can buy in the first.
Whether or not you can buy, because number one, there's interest, yes. But then once you get the interest, is number one, whether you get the luck
Yeah.
to even be able to get a good queue number. And then when you get the queue number is whether you can get the unit that you want. So I think if let's say you do really want to get a unit there, then maybe you can try Coastal Cabana first. I think it's still a development that you can consider. And then let's say, for example, you didn't really get the unit,
Then you can try for Revel.
Revel as well.
Actually, I am on the opposite end. I feel like because I have time to wait, maybe I'll just wait for Revel. I do think Coastal Cabana will do well. I think there is pent-up demand for ECs in the east because there haven't been many. So, but I will think that maybe there will be some left for me lah. It's a gamble that I will take. Yeah.
So it's whether you want to take that gamble or not. Because I think likely for both scenarios, I think both projects are going to do well and they're going to move fast.
Yes.
So if let's say you really do have that plan to get a unit, then maybe try for both and then see how it takes you. Because I think if you do look at Coastal Cabana, I think if you are careful about the price you enter, I think there's actually good deals that you can get.
Yeah, I think so too. The question is, I think you've really led on to it. Should we still, is this still in our checklist?
Yeah.
Should we still put that check in? Should we wait? I think just if we had to analyze quickly and wrap up, firstly, okay, in terms of pricing, when we looked at it, yes, it is very comparable to what resale prices are asking. But usually when we say resale prices are the same as new launches, then it's a no-brainer to go for the new launch, because the lease has resetted, everything is brand new. The second thing is, of course, this only makes sense if you had the time to wait. You don't need a home immediately because during this time you might need to rent. And then, I guess it just boils down to priorities and needs, right? So if, let's say, you need a place to stay now, then the resale options also kind of make sense in the area. And Pasir Ris tends to be a little bit, because it's on the outer skirts, the prices do tend to be a little bit more competitive. So that is still an area that they can consider.
Yeah. So I think if you are in the market looking to enter into an EC, and Coastal Cabana came up on your search, I think if let's say, for example, you need more information on what kind of stack to choose, what's the pricing to enter, you can always reach out to us. Because I think for Coastal Cabana, one of the main for Coastal Cabana, I think we need to be careful in terms of the price that we enter, because number one, it is you have competition Orel of Tampines, and number two, I think resale projects there are also, in terms of PSF, they are low, but in terms of quantum, they're also comparable. Yes, so we just want to ensure that we enter into a good disparity, because again, likely if you're looking to buy an EC, likely you're going to move in 5 years, 6 years. So you want to be able to get that price disparity and that profits in. So if you want to find out more about the floor plan analysis, what floor plans to take, what stacks to go for, what's the entry price that you want to enter into.
Not just the entry price, but like what's the walkaway price.
Yes, what's the walkaway price? And let us know. You can reach out to us on our mobile numbers. Reach out here, somewhere here. We can drop us a DM if you're on Instagram. And
very quick review of Coastal Cabana. There's so much more. There's so much more we can talk about. But yeah, if you're interested to find out more, like you said, just reach out and we'll be happy to talk more about it. The next episode we'll be talking about Pinery, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, you're very excited about it.
So let's go into the next one. We'll see you again. This is Truthful. I looked at the wrong camera.
Sorry, bye.
You looked at that one?
I looked at the...
Yeah, look at this one.
No, I was looking at the screen.
Bye!
Bye.